to focus our attention on those kids with the greatest need, but also reach them as early as possible. Because if you have a child who's 14 or 16 or 18, it takes so much more time and energy and resources to help them get back on track than if you have a child who's 5 or 6 or 8. So we target those youngest kids, and we target those with the greatest need. And we do not teach reading and writing. There are absolutely fantastic folks all across New Hampshire and Vermont in schools and other organizations that do that. But our job is to really fill a gap that is very important, and that is to help make reading and writing fun and inspiring and something that kids want to do. And a question we often get is, do teachers or do schools, do they feel comfortable you coming in? It's kind of, you're coming into their territory. And the short answer is, they're delighted. What teacher doesn't want a child who's more excited about reading and writing, who's more interested, who wants to go get the next book, who wants to write a poem? And that's where we come in. Our job is to help kids get excited about reading and writing. We give away lots of books, and I'll talk about that in a second. But I would say, my personal opinion, our most important value is we connect those children and their parents and caregivers. We'll talk about that in a second. We connect them with some of the most inspiring authors, illustrators, poets, storytellers, and graphic novelists in New Hampshire and Vermont. So we have, I think, 62 or 63 professional presenters, and we vet them because there are lots of fantastic authors and illustrators and poets and storytellers who do great work, but are not really comfortable or not as compelling with kids. So we need people who can do both. And then once we find them, we pay them, and we send them all over New Hampshire and Vermont. So if you look at a map, you can see our presenters are spread across the 2 states, and they go into all the venues that we talked about. And face-to-face, they share their love and their inspiration around literacy and reading and writing. And that makes such a difference. For a child to be able to talk to Jason Chin, who just won the Caldecott Award, how did you come up with the idea for that book? And how did you learn how to draw like that? And it turns out that Jason Chin, who some of you may know because he grew up, I think, in Lyme, was inspired by a CLIF presenter who used to live around here too. So it's sort of like a chain letter so far at this point. So all of our work is free, and that's a really important thing because the organizations that I listed, schools, libraries, shelters, low-income housing, et cetera, they have very limited resources, very limited time. Everything we do is completely free. And we serve all the kids in an organization. So it would really be inappropriate, in my view, we're trying to find those schools, for example, that have the highest proportion of kids that are scoring below standard in reading and writing. How inappropriate would it be to say, okay, so we checked your scores, you're going to join us, but not you, not you. So whatever organization we serve everybody, and we don't care who they are. But we know that since we're serving that organization, they have significant needs. And we serve also, when possible, the parents and the caregivers because they have such an important impact on those children. Not only that, actually, when is the next conference, Laura? We have
April 12th.
April 12th. So April 12th in Lake Maury, we're going to have school principals and teachers and school librarians and public librarians and literacy experts coming for a free conference, something that we do every year. So this is an old map, but it just gives you a sense of our range. That's sort of a typical year in the life of CLIF. So in a typical year, we have something like 800, 900 events, and total attendance at those events range between sort of 40 and 50,000. So we serve a lot of kids, and we go to a lot of towns. And this is often sort of the end result of what we do. So we see some beautiful books here. This is a summer readers event up in northern Vermont. And one of the really powerful things about what we do is we also give away tons of books. All the books we give away are brand new. They all are inspiring, great books that would help kids get excited about reading and writing. And kids get to choose what they want. There's a ton of research that shows that when kids get to choose what they want to read, they're many times more likely to enjoy reading and to want to read the next book. And so we will come at our events, and you'll see more pictures of this, and tables will be covered with hundreds and hundreds of books. And kids will come up like, "What? You get to choose any 2 books or 4 books. What do you want to read?" Like, so we get to keep these? Yeah. Forever? Yeah. They're yours. Oh my. Sometimes it's a little mind-blowing. You have to let them realize, because they've never had that opportunity before. Some of these people live, 45 minutes from the nearest bookstore. They've never had a chance to choose what they want to read. We also, I'm not going to go into great detail, but we also have lots of events for parents and caregivers. This is up in northern Vermont. This is an event where Natalie Kinsey-Warnock, an awesome presenter for CLIF, she's written about 20 children's books, and she specializes in capturing family stories. So she will help every child in a school research a family member, often a grandfather, great-grandmother, etc., put together a beautiful triptych, and then the whole gym turns into a museum. And these are all individuals from the family that are being highlighted, so the children learn about interviewing and writing and researching, and then the whole community comes out because they learn about their own family members. That's a whole hour-long presentation right there. So, finally, we get to the Children of Incarcerated Adults program. Roughly, on average, 70% of incarcerated adults in the United States have low literacy skills, and there's a whole range of reasons why that situation exists. But given that, their children are at much higher risk of going down the same path. And statistics show that 75% of incarcerated women, roughly, have minor children, and 65% of incarcerated men have minor children. And in my view, when an individual is sentenced to be in prison, their children are sentenced as well. They're sentenced to be without a parent, and they didn't do anything. And a lot of research also shows how critical it is to maintain family ties, or at least ties with some sort of network outside of a prison, so that when an individual is done with their sentence, and almost all of the inmates in the United States, vast majority of them, eventually are going to be returned back to their society, their communities, they need to have some sort of network, some sort of group of people who can support them. And one of the great ways to do that is to make sure they maintain connections with their family and with their kids. So, we give regular seminars to male and female incarcerated adults and encourage them to share books and stories with their kids. As I mentioned, 70% of them have low literacy skills. So we share with them tips and strategies so that anybody, regardless of their literacy skills, can share stories and books with their kids. How do you do that? Well, some of you may have done this with your kids or grandkids, where you open up a page and you look at the pictures and you're like, oh, look at that. That's a tree house. Oh, I remember when I was a kid, my dad built a tree. He wasn't great at building. He almost fell down once. But anyways, I was up there one time, and you could have a whole wonderful interaction around a book without reading a single word. And of course, they're wonderful books, as Sarah and others know, that don't have any words at all. So anybody can share a great book. And we show them how to do that. So we have a series of seminars. And by the way, we work with a range of prisons. We work with the men's prison in Concord, New Hampshire, the men's prison in Berlin, New Hampshire, way up near the Canadian border, the women's prison in Concord, the women's prison in South Burlington, the men's prison in Rutland, and we're always looking for new facilities that can accommodate our program. We need some great support inside the walls to make that happen, but we're always looking for those. So for those facilities where we have long-term relationships, and some of these are 10, 15 years old, we go in usually 4 times a year and hold seminars with any men or women who want to come. And it's important to note, some people think, well, are they really interested? I mean, when you show up, do they care? I'm like, well, you can't force them to see you. So they've decided to come. They've taken time out of whatever their schedule is to come and see you. So yeah, they're absolutely interested. Plus, keep in mind that for these men and women, there's very little that they can do for their families while they're inside. And this is an opportunity for them to learn how to better connect with their kids, which they want to do. And we'll have tables and tables covered with books, and they get to choose whatever books they want. And they get to write notes in the books. Hey, buddy, I saw this book. I know that you love, cars, and this looked really exciting. I want to talk to you next time you read it. And love you, and we'll see you. And then our volunteers take those books and mail them home, package them up and mail them home. And we do that 4 times a year. And we've been going to these facilities 4 times a year for years and years. So some of these kids have an entire library at home full of notes from mom or dad. And the stories we hear about the strengthened connections that occur because of that are really powerful. So this is a picture from the men's penitentiary in Concord, New Hampshire. I'll be going there in a couple of weeks, and actually some folks in this room will be joining me, which is fantastic. And so it's a really fun conversation. And these men in particular are there because they want to learn more. They want to connect with their families. And for a lot of them, the relationships with their families are strained. And maybe they haven't seen their kids for a long time. I was reading, let's see here, 59% of fathers and 58% of mothers have no visits from their kids. 62% of parents in state prisons have families more than 100 miles away. It's a challenge to stay connected when you're incarcerated. You know, think about Berlin, New Hampshire. That's a long way. A lot of the families don't live near Berlin. They might not have reliable transportation. They may be working multiple jobs. So some of these men and women might not see their kids for a long, long time. This is a way to maintain connections with them. And these are really fun, interactive. There's lots of questions, stories. And then one thing we always do is we tell one story, which is funny because you would think that's kind of strange to do in a prison. They love to hear stories. So we tell a story, and we're basically modeling the storytelling techniques, and they're learning from that. And some of these folks have seen us dozens of times, and they're still learning something each time, because every time we try to bring different folks, and they all bring different perspectives. So at the end of a seminar, this is a typical scene. We'll bring one row at a time up, and they'll look at all the books. And a lot of them, they might not have seen their kids for a while. They might not really know what they're interested in, sadly, because they haven't been involved. So that we get lots of questions like, so, you know, I've got a 7-year-old daughter. Okay, cool. What is she into? I'm not really sure. All right, so here's some books that I think a typical 7-year-old girl might be interested. So we guide them to books that might be appropriate. And as they come back again and again, they'll send a book home. They'll talk to the child. Oh, I love that, but this is kind of book. So they have the ability to tell us, we would like to get this book. My daughter said she wants to get book number 2 in the Rick Riordan series. And we'll go ahead and buy it and have it waiting for them the next time we see them again. So it's so important to get the right book to a child's hand, because when a child gets to choose, again, they're much more likely to get excited about reading and writing. Then once they've chosen the books, we strongly encourage, very strongly encourage, each man and woman to write a personal note. And this is parents, but it's also grandparents, and it's also aunts and uncles, because some folks don't have kids. So we want them to stay connected with their families, whatever their families may be. So they write wonderful notes. Here are a couple of examples that we were allowed to show, but we see hundreds and thousands of these notes, and they're really warm and wonderful and heart-wrenching at the same time. So that's a powerful thing to send home, and I can tell you these children hold on to those books. Sometimes we hear stories they just carry it around with them for weeks at a time, because it's their direct connection to that special person. Another thing we do is we have regular family fun days, so we will visit the facilities. We'll organize with the facilities, so it typically is, maybe Mother's Day or Father's Day or around the holidays, and we'll send a professional presenter in, and all the families will come, and there'll be food and drinks and music and games and storytelling. And then when we're done, of course, all the kids get to choose whatever brand new books, and a lot of the moms or dads will be there to sort of look at the books with them and talk about the books with them, and that's a really fun time. So this is up in Berlin, New Hampshire. So just a quick couple of pictures. If you are new to CLIF, our headquarters is actually up in Waterbury Center, Vermont, and that's where Laura and the staff are. And I know that they would love to see anyone to go up there. Just let her know if you're coming, and she'll make sure to give you a warm welcome. And we're so excited because just recently, as in a year ago, we built a brand new headquarters. And many thanks to many folks in this room who made that happen, but it is a stellar facility. And we have lots of staff members and lots of volunteers, because we give away out of that facility close to $1 million worth of brand new books every year. And every book needs to be brought in and sorted by reading level and stickered and labeled, and then we get a request, we're going to this school or this shelter or this facility, and we'll have a sense of how many kids and what ages, and then our wonderful volunteers will pick from the shelves. We need 50 of these books and 30 of this and 20 of that. We'll have boxes and boxes of books, and we'll take them out, lay them out, and then kids get to choose. So again, all our programs are free. We have regular conferences, one coming up in a couple of weeks for educators and also for parents. We have a lot of parent seminars to help parents understand the same lessons that we were talking about, how anybody can share books wonderfully with kids, how important it is to do it on a regular basis, and how special it can be both for the kids and for the adults too. And we have 8 literacy programs. We have a wonderful website. If you'd like to go to the website, you can read all the programs, and you can see videos from each of the programs. Speaking of videos, I'm going to show you a video in 1 second, but before I do, catch my breath and ask if any of you have any questions so far about CLIF or about our program in prisons.
I have a quick question.
Yes, Emily.
I'm just so interested in how you said when you go to the prisons, you sort of model storytelling. And
Yes.
you get sort of used to what the whole setup is for the story. So is it in your presentation that you're modeling it, or are you saying this is a book and this is how it's told? Or I'm just curious what you mean about that.
I'll tell you a quick story. So when we started CLIF, after about 1.5 years, 2 years, we said, now we're ready to see if we can start working in prisons. So we started contacting prisons. And in those days, they were a lot less interested in this type of program. So we got no for 2 years. And I kept contacting wardens and staff members, no. And finally, up in Newport, Vermont, they said, you can try it. All right, you've been bugging us enough. You can try it. On this Saturday, it's a family visiting day. If you want to come up, here's the way it works. The families there, they've driven a long way. You can't interrupt them, but you can just stand up and say, I'm going to do a book giveaway and a quick storytelling. If anyone wants to join you, they can. Otherwise, you got to go home. Like, all right, fine. So I went up there with another CLIF staff member, and we set up the books, and there were about 20, 25 families. I'm like, sorry to bother you, but we got some books and the story, and if you want to come. Like 90% of them came over, because it's a really fun thing to do. And if you think about it, if you're going to a family visiting room, it's tough. There's not a lot to talk about, or sometimes it's strange. So like storytelling, brand new books, that'd be fun. So everyone came over. We had a great time. We did storytelling, and everything was great. So the same experience was when I went the first time to do a seminar. And I thought, well, they should learn how to tell a story, but it's a little strange. I'm sitting in a room, as you saw, with like 60 men who don't look like the typical children's book audience. And so I was like, I'd like to read you a story to see how it goes. And they're like, yeah, okay. So I started telling a story that's appropriate for 5 or 6-year-olds. And it's about a 25-page story. It's about a rabbit and a fox and the trouble they get into. It's a really kid-like story. So I got about 5 pages in showing how you can just look at the pictures and all of that. And then I closed the book like, okay, so now you get the idea. And first row, if you want to come up and choose the book. So first row came up, and then about 3 or 4 people in the audience, Mr. Duncan, yeah. What happened in the end of the story? I'm like, you guys are pulling my chain. No, what happened in the end of the story? All right, so let's go to page 5. And so every time I have to tell a story. And every presenter has to tell one story. They love to, why not? Kids' stories are fun and positive, and sometimes that's a little change of pace where they are. So anyways, they love to hear stories, and so at the end of every presentation, it's getting hard now because I've seen these guys so many times, I have to keep coming up with different stories. Sometimes I have to recycle a story I told like 8 years ago or whatever. But they love to hear a story, and it's a great way to show them. And it takes, for a lot of these folks, reading was not part of their family history. They're not comfortable doing it. They had trouble in school. They weren't comfortable in school. They were told that they were dumb because maybe they had a learning disability and they didn't realize it. So all of this is loaded. But we show them, it doesn't matter. Just have a fun conversation. Talk about your visit to Uncle Frank's farm because there's a farm scene in the book. And what do they remember? And remember climbing that tree when you fell out and whatever. And it's a great experience around a book. You've done that. You've knocked it out of the park. So that's the kind of modeling that we show. And we also read books. And a lot of these folks are very well educated. Some of them have masters and PhDs and all of that. It's a whole range of folks. And especially with opioid epidemic, you never know who you're going to see. So it's a whole range of folks, but for a lot of folks, reading is a challenge, so we model how it's easy for anybody. Any other questions? Yes, Teresa.
Susan on Zoom is wondering if there are halfway houses in Vermont and New Hampshire, and if so, do you provide programs there?
So we have worked with some of the sort of transitional houses. But I think, Dismas basically, would you say, Tom, that kind of serves in that role?
It does, yeah.
Yeah? So we're looking forward, we're talking about possibly working with Dismas House to do that. But yes, we're always happy to go wherever we can. And a lot of it depends on when the facilities can allow us to come in. And we're looking for facilities where the folks there have interactions with their kids. So we're happy to do that. Yes, Bartlett.
At Dismas House, many of the people who are residents come from the Springfield facility. And I didn't hear it on your list of facilities, and is there something that we can do to help you get in there?
So I'm not going to speak for Laura, but I know that in the past, we are absolutely open to go into any facilities, but what we need is someone who is on the inside, who can coordinate these events, recruit the men and women to come. We really need a sustained, ongoing, very organized person on the inside to make it happen, because obviously we can't do it from the outside. So the facilities that I mentioned have full-time staff members who can do that for us. And then we set a date with them, whatever works for their schedule. We come in, the men and women are there, we do our thing. And some facilities, unfortunately, don't have that. So if we can find a new facility that does have that, I would guess we'd love to hear about it.
We absolutely would, and I think, needless to say, during COVID, everything was shut down, and so we lost the momentum with this program, and now we're starting to, just this past year, we've been back into all of the facilities that we have historically been in, and we're well positioned now to speak with new facilities who might be interested. So, but Duncan's absolutely right in terms of having a connection and having that build from within is essential. So.
And by the way, during COVID, we weren't shut down. We basically couldn't go there in person because they were all in lockdown. So what we had is we had the men and women fill out forms, and we gave them lists of, here are 30 books, and here are 5 books for this age group and that, and they picked whatever book, and then they would write a note at the bottom of the form to the child. We'd cut out the note, we'd stick it in the book, and we mailed the books home. So the kids were getting regular books, but we weren't seeing the men and women in person. So we did the best we could during a tough time. Any other questions? All right, well, let me show this movie. And I might need some help up here to do that. Close out of that. Did that come up? Maybe I don't.
So we just want to make sure you're still up. Perfect.
Perfect. Thank you. My name is Duncan, and I work with a great group called the Children's Literacy Foundation, and we have been so happy to be coming here and visiting for the last 2.5 years.
It's a day I could spend with the family. The kids seem to enjoy it. Every year they remind me about it. They talk about it often. It seems to affect them greatly, and it has a huge impact for me because it's a chance for me to be as much involved as I can.
I think the CLIF program is awesome. It definitely keeps us together with our kids. It's like something that we can kind of still be there for in a way.
I think it's a great program. I think that it encourages the children to read more.
They love the books. She's learning actually how to read from the books that we give them from CLIF. So events like this is just awesome. I mean, you couldn't ask for anything better.
CLIF hosts special family literacy celebrations when inmates, children, and caregivers gather at the prison to enjoy special food, games, storytelling, and new books for the children to keep.
That was refreshing.
It kind of means the world to me. I have little contact with my children at this time, but I enjoy sending them books, and hopefully they think of me as often I think of them.
CLIF gives regular seminars to inmates to encourage them to read with their kids, and offers strategies and techniques to parents who are not strong or confident readers.
Not surprisingly, these moms don't get to spend much time with their kids, and CLIF helps give them the tools to connect with their children through storytelling. The program not only helps build literacy skills in the kids, but it also helps the mothers improve their own communication skills while strengthening their bonds with their children.
CLIF donates children's book libraries for family visiting rooms, so inmates and their children can have a fun experience reading together on visiting days.
The relationship with me and my daughter have gotten a lot better through the books that I send her from CLIF. This program is amazing. It really is.
CLIF supports the Storybook program, in which inmates can record children's books onto CDs or MP3s, and CLIF mails the books and recordings home to their children.
All children need their parents, and both parents. Inmates are going home, they're going to be living in the community, it's just a matter of when. So this way they're prepared, they already have a relationship with the child.
So we have the whole gamut of books here. And we're going to talk about a lot of them, and we're also going to talk about different ways to share them, and we'll tell you guys a story. What I wanted to say is that anybody can tell a fantastic story. These are a few tips on how to get kids excited about reading.
The free books are great, but listen to him tell a story and just some of the tips he gives us as fathers as far as communicating with our children, it's priceless.
At each seminar, inmates select books for their children, write special notes in them, and then CLIF mails the books home.
The CLIF seminar, I think it helped. It just made it more like she wanted to listen.
This program is something that lets us escape from the prison life and allow us to, be more involved in our kids' lives, and that's what we're trying to get back to.
To learn more or make a donation, go to www.clifonline.org or call 802-244-0944.
So I can't believe I neglected to mention one of our favorite aspects of this program, and that's the Storybook program. So we also, in all the facilities, donate a significant number of books, and the men and women can choose books from that collection for free, and then they set up a time. We've also donated recording equipment, and so they can record a children's book onto MP3 or CD, and then the recordings and the books are sent home to the families. So kids can hear mom or dad or grandparents read a story to them at night and have the book in their hands and hear their voice. And that's a really, really powerful way to stay connected to. And last thing I forgot to mention was that we did some research about 6-7 years ago. We were curious what kind of impact we were having on the men and women we were serving. And we handed out questionnaires in different facilities. And it turns out, much to our surprise, but we were delighted to hear that 98% of the men and women reported that the CLIF program helped strengthen the connection between them and their children. 97% said they were, after going to seminars, were more comfortable sharing books with their children. 91% said the CLIF program helped their children become more interested in books and stories. 90% said that they reported sharing books and stories with their children more often as a result of the program. And one thing that really surprised us was that a significant portion said that they were now more interested in pursuing education themselves. So getting their GED or others, because we talked about the value and the importance of reading and writing and literacy in their lives. And when they really understood that, they thought, well, not only do I want to do that for myself, but I want to model it. And a lot of the men and women we see, because we've set up children's book libraries in the family visiting rooms of all these facilities. So when families come in, they can read the books. So sometimes they're like, well, I'll read a book myself, and then I'll send that book home, and we can talk about that book. So as I mentioned, it's a very challenging thing to talk with your kids from a correctional facility. Hey, Dad, what's new? Not much. How are things at school? Good. You doing all right? Yeah. So then we talk with these folks, and like after you send the books, you've been sending books 2 or 3 times. How is it? Oh man, I talked for like 45 minutes with them about the books and about characters in the books, and now we have all sorts of stuff to talk about. And he's given me a list of books, so here's the next book he wants to get, and it opens up a whole avenue for them to connect. And also for the partners back home, a lot of times there's some tough water that's gone under the bridge, and they feel like they've really let the family down, and they see on a regular basis books coming in and notes, and then suddenly, okay, so this person really does care about the kids. So it helps reconnect that family that way too. So there are a lot of really positive repercussions that happen through this program. And I tell you, for a parent, you're not really supposed to like one child more than another. Same thing is for CLIF in our programs, but this is one of our all-time favorite programs that we do. And every time we get to go in and work with folks, we love doing that. So any other questions come to mind? All right. Yes, please.
So you said that Cliff started across the hall.
Yes.
Why did you decide to start Cliff? What did you see that was lacking? What made you say this is something that's really needed?
Sure. Well, I'd been working in business. I actually went to Tuck across the field and worked in business in Boston for 7 years and decided that was great, but it really wasn't who I was, and wanted to do something in the not-for-profit world and wanted to live in this area because I love New Hampshire and Vermont. And so I've been a lifelong reader. I had worked as a school teacher. I'd worked with refugee families in the past. I'd worked in prisons. So I thought I know that I can contribute something to it. And so I spent 9 months going around New Hampshire and Vermont and speaking to about almost 200 people, including Sarah, who I burst into her library unsuspecting to her. So I talked to educators and lots of folks and said, this is an idea I have. You know, I'd like to start an organization that serves underserved kids in New Hampshire and Vermont, this age, this types of programs. What do you think? Got some great feedback, convened 18 of those folks in that room, in the Murray room, and I think 14 ended up being founding board members. And we got started with one program serving rural public libraries, and then we added author visits, and then we added the prison program, and then we added shelters, and it grew from there. So it's been 26 years now, and we've given away about $11 million worth of books. We've served 410,000 kids-ish, and we've been in about 94% of all the communities at some point in New Hampshire and Vermont. So we've got a few others we're going to get to, but there's some, you know, the Hanovers and the Limes of the world probably don't need our help. We're going to focus on the Derby, Vermonts, and the Pittsburgh, New Hampshires. That's our bread and butter. Yeah. Yes, go ahead.
Well, Duncan, this is so much fun. I wonder if CLIF has sprouted seeds in other states.
Good question. So since I have an MBA, with my MBA hat on when I started CLIF, I'm like, okay, here's the plan. We're going to start this organization. After 3 or 4 years, we're going to polish the model, and then we're going national. That's what you got to do. And so in about year 8, the board felt like, okay, we've got, at that point, we had 7 programs. We had a good track record. They were going well. Time to do it. So we looked around. We said, upstate New York, Maine. Maine's the place to go. So I remember taking a trip to Maine. We convened something like 90% of the literacy leaders in Maine. We had a 2-hour presentation. Here's what CLIF does. And they said, you know, almost all the programs don't exist in Maine. And great credit to them. They said, please come, because we were going to be coming onto their territory. So we really started digging into what's involved, and we realized this is going to threaten our work here. We're going to be overstretched. And instead of a push strategy, let's do a pull strategy. Let's do the best we can here. Let's spread the word. And if anyone from another state wants to learn how we do it, they can learn anything they want. So, for example, we were contacted from Maine by a woman who wants to start the prison program there. So she came to Concord. She spent the day seeing how we do it. We're going to provide them with a variety of support, and she's going to start a similar program in Maine. I have a list of, I think, something like 38 states. Someone from that state has contacted CLIF and asked about our library program, prison program, whatever. And we'll share anything we can with them. They just can't take our name. But other than that, please. I mean, the more kids that we can serve, the better. But we're going to do it that way. We're going to stick to Vermont, New Hampshire. It's up to the board and Laura, but at least until recently, we're just going to focus on our knitting and do the best we can here, because there's plenty of need. Sarah.
Well, mine is an earlier question. I just wanted to express the magic of the moment when Duncan came to Hartford Social Library and said, can I have 15 minutes of your time? And of course, we talked for an hour. And he said, what do you think? And I said, oh my gosh, yeah. And at that point, it was just the rural libraries, but you could just see the energy bubbling and the vision, and I said, yes, let's go for it. And so it's
Thank goodness you did.
A beautiful journey to see how it's, as you say, instead of going thinner, it's gone deeper, and that's just been beautiful.
And it's been thanks to hundreds and hundreds of people, Deb and Sarah and Mark and Carolyn and Rick and Laura and others who've made this possible. So it's definitely a team effort.
Starting with the seed.
Alan.
I work with Camp Exclamation Point, and Duncan has been a major part of what we do. We have a residential camp for underserved kids, and he comes in at the beginning of camp and gives away books. And we have storytellers coming. And it is truly an extraordinary experience for these kids. And Duncan leaves, after the books are gone, but the kids are there reading the books all week long at camp. And I just can't thank you enough for all that you do for camp.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really fun. We've had some presenters we've been going to camp for 20-ish years now. It's been a long time. And we bring professional storytellers there. And it's been really fun because at night around the campfire, we have all these kids, and we have really amazing storytellers. And now some of them have taken upon themselves where every year they have 2 or 3 professional storytellers come from New York City and others and just knock the socks off the kids. But we have an on-site library there, so they get to choose books that float around all week at the camp, and then they get to choose brand new books too. So always a pleasure to come to camp.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, please.
Do the events and programs at homeless shelters kind of resemble the family day events at prisons or something unique?
So typically what we do is a facility like that, we would try to set up a time, often in the evening, where the parents and the kids can be there, the caregivers and the kids. We'll do a seminar first with the adults, similar to what we talked about, the importance of sharing books and stories with kids, the impact have on a child's development, and ways anybody can do it. So we model storytelling. Then the kids come back, and we do a storytelling. So not only do the kids have a fun time, but the parents say, oh, that's what it looks like in action. And often they're like, I had no idea. My kid would be so excited about a book. They're usually playing on a video game, but clearly they're having a lot of fun. And then see the kids go up to the tables and they had trouble deciding which books to get. They're so excited about books. I had no idea. So that whole package is usually what happens. And then we also donate an entire library of children's books. So every time we serve a shelter, there's a $2,000 library often that is on site for good after that. So the families can have beautiful brand new hardcover, Mylar cover books that'll last 30 years. Yeah. So if anybody knows of an organization, a group of kids that would benefit from our work, again, children from birth to age 12, under-resourced, maybe having trouble literacy-wise, please tell us, because we want to serve as many folks as we can. Go to our website, the application, each program page has an application. It's very short. We know that people are stretched, so they're really easy to fill out. And the more folks we can serve, the better. So we'd love to hear about it. Any other questions? Yes, Deb.
I just think it would be a great opportunity to tell people that there's also the year of the book.
Sure.
For the school.
I almost want to pass that one on to Laura.
Sure. So one of the other of the 7 grant programs that CLIF has, in addition to this program, is called the Year of the Book. And in many ways, this is sort of our flagship program. It's a year-long partnership with, and usually these are about 10 to 12 schools in New Hampshire and Vermont total. We spend all year with that school offering a whole variety of programming and resources. Usually there's 4 to 5 author, illustrator, storyteller, graphic novelist presentations. Each child in that school receives, over the course of the school year, 10 books that they can choose themselves. We provide library books for the school library. We provide library books for the classroom libraries. We provide project funding dollars for teachers and others in the school they have a creative literacy idea that they want to do, that we can fund them to do that project. And that goes on for the course of the entire year. So it's really, this particular program is to, as we call it, build a culture of literacy at the school. So that those kids in these under-resourced schools are just getting just a whole plethora of opportunities and experiences as it relates to literacy, building what Duncan has spoken about, which is the whole fun and enjoyment of literacy. We know those teachers are teaching the how to read, and we're coming in with all of the exciting opportunities to get excited about reading. And it goes on all year long. And then for all of those schools that have been our Year of the Book schools, that next year we offer a small, what we call momentum grant. Because obviously those schools hopefully have gotten a lot of momentum and excitement in that first year. We don't want to say goodbye in June and be like, okay, good luck. so we provide additional funding that next year to those schools to hopefully keep some of that momentum going.
And in perpetuity, all of the staff from those schools, and then we're now up to about 120 schools, they can come to the conference that's coming. So it's the Community Literacy Conference. It's an all-day conference with special outside speakers and a full lunch and everything. And they get to come in perpetuity for free because we want to stay connected with them, share new ideas from the different schools, and it's an absolutely wonderful, wonderful day.
And I really reiterate what Duncan said. If you know, in your networks and who you're connected with, we are always trying, what I worry about is, who are we missing? Who doesn't know about our grant programs? Who doesn't even know to apply? We have all sorts of ways that we try and get the word out. And there's no better way than someone, contacting a librarian at a school that they know saying, hey, you should give CLIF a call. And there's lots of information on our websites. You can also just pick up and call us. Our two program managers are amazing about sort of listening. Okay, what are your needs? What are you looking for? Well, actually, I think you're better suited for this grant, not that grant. Or sometimes a community partner will start with one grant, and then the next year they apply for a different grant. So there's connection. We're always willing to work with a community partner. And we really, again, getting the word out, letting people know what we do, passing that word, that is hugely helpful to us.
The last thing I'd love to do is hear from any of the CLIF folks who have joined me in giving these seminars. And I know that Laura, Mark, Rick, Deb, and perhaps some others have done that. But if you have any just brief observations or, yeah, Deb.
Well, I have been fortunate enough to go to the Concord Men's Prison twice with Duncan, and one time we went into the high security section of the prison, which was a little intimidating. I'll be honest with you, because we were in a small room with about 20 men, and the prison had not initially wanted us to have all of them in one room together and said you have to meet with them one at a time. And I will never forget one man coming up to me for help as he was picking books, and he said, I have I'm making it up, 8-month-old son. Should I pick a book for my son or for his mother? And I just thought it was a wonderful moment of just thinking about the books and the relationship with books on the part of the individual.
Nice. Anyone else?
I just might say the virtuous circle, having been to the facilities in New Hampshire, there was a sense that a lot of the prisoners wonder about how their kids feel about them. And it's quite understandable that they're not a real hero. But you sensed in the way they were writing some of the notes and what they were doing as they were creating a way of communicating back and forth and becoming a value to their kids. And you sort of think about that, how it works, and if you can, as Duncan says, it's so important when they return to their homes that they have someone that is welcoming them, and the recidivism rate, I'm sure, gets affected by that circle that gets them involved.
And the other message we share with them, thank you, Rick, the other message we share with them is that books are a wonderful vehicle to start conversations about topics that a child would not let you talk about otherwise. So you can be reading a book to a child, and if you were having a one-on-one conversation about whatever it might be, and they're like, I'm not talking about that, no, and walk away. But in a book, like, why do you think George did that? What would you do in that situation? I remember when I was a kid, I was in a situation like that. This is what I did. It allows you to have those conversations that are really tough. There's one book called Spirit Bear. What's it called? Something. Meeting Spirit Bear. It's not quite the title. It's about a child who beats up another child very badly and gets put on an island. This is up in the northwest of the country, and gets put on an island for a year and processes all of the challenges in their life. And that's a book that gets sent home a lot. And I have a lot of men and women who say, my child is at risk of joining a gang or whatever. And I sent this book home, and we had these great conversations. And that book really helped us broach a topic we could not talk about otherwise. Mark.
I'll say I went to a year of the book presentation at Hardwick Elementary School in community with its challenges. We have a vacation home up nearby, so we've gotten to know the community pretty well. And it was done by Jason Chen. And what was remarkable about it to me was that he would bring, or the school would bring, entire grades in. There were 3 separate sessions, 2 hours apiece, or maybe an hour and a half apiece. And Jason would talk to them for an hour and a half. Not once, one was say, I can't remember now, but perhaps the kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade. So not once was there a moment where a single kid acted out in any way. No kid was trying to get attention. No kid, well, other than the attention of perhaps Jason Chen, no kid was trying to just bother another kid. They were absolutely engaged, absolutely rapt. The only disappointment that sort of filtered out was that among the many presentations that year, this was one of the few where books weren't given out. there was a little bit of upset.
That's good.
Other than that, it was just magical. It was, Jason Chen is this marvelous illustrator and author who could, he would show the kids how he would draw each of the pictures and how he would connect it to the script. It was just beautiful. And he started by saying, here's the first thing I ever drew when I was 2 or 3. And my mom said it was good, so I started to believe that I could do it.
Yay, Mom.
But what was cool was that it gives the kids a sense that they too can start out doing something that perhaps isn't amazing, but could theoretically become so.
Yeah.
It was just a thoroughly lovely day. It was one of those days where your mouth is tired from smiling.
Yeah.
It was lovely.
Yes, Deb.
Well, and if anybody is a shopper at the co-op, the next time you go into the Lebanon co-op, the huge chalkboards above the deli counter and above seafood, those are all illustrations Jason did back when he was still a high school student, when the grocery store first opened. And they're pretty remarkable.
And now he's one of the most celebrated authors and storytellers in the United States.
I was just going to say one thing also. So interested in basically you're helping people have conversations with their own kids and families.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that is such a ripple effect through life, right? To have conversations about books rather than doom scrolling.
Yeah.
Seeing the latest horrible thing is so beautiful. And to help a new generation learn how to do that, an adult showing a kid, and then kid grows to also discuss those things is just, you're planting so many seeds.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, it's a pleasure seeing all of you today. Thank you for taking the time to come out. For those who have been CLIF board members, could you raise your hand, or are a board member? I'm sure they'd love to answer any questions. Laura, the new, surprise, Laura, the new executive director, is here. We have some materials we'd love for you to take home. And all the information is on our website, very easy to access. And I want to thank Tom and Bartlett and all the folks from Dismas House. Dismas House is a fantastic program. We're looking forward to figuring out the best ways to connect with you guys. And we're so honored to be involved in your lecture series, and we wish it all the best. Thank you so much. Nice to see you.